Welcome to this week's episode of Forgiving the Girl Inside, a Matter of the Heart. My dog just jumped and fell and slipped, but it's all right. It's all good because we're real people here. Thanks for joining here, Energetic Mindset Mentor, Business Strategist. Welcome to this week's episode. I'm so super excited to have the beautiful Callie Brown here. She is going to be sharing an incredible healing journey story. And if you've been following me for any length of time, you're going to find her story, a previous story on YouTube, but it's so powerful and it has so much meaning. And I know so many people resonate with it. I was like, you got to come on the podcast. So welcome, Callie. I'm so glad you're here. And just your willingness to share and the beauty of it. So just share from the heart what's going on. You've been on this healing journey for a couple decades now.
Definitely. Thank you so much for having me on here. I'm always happy to share my story because when I was going through it, the hardest part was feeling like I was alone, like nobody understood what I was going through. And I didn't understand why these things kept happening to me. Like I would ask God, why are these things happening? And at the time they didn't make sense, but now being able to share and help others and hear them tell me that, me sharing from the heart, as you said, that it really helps them. And in that, it's helped me find why I went through those things. Because if I didn't, it wouldn't make me who I am today, and I wouldn't be able to help those people. And I wouldn't change that for the world. So, yeah.
Yeah, it is so incredible because when we look at our pain, I was stuck in my pain for so long and I didn't see a purpose for it. And it was like, why do I have to go through this? And why am I so angry? And why am I so frustrated? And there was this constant hole in my heart. And then I realized it is a matter of the heart. And when I began my healing journey, I was like, Lord, I'm tired. I'm exhausted. And I really, truly thought I was the only person that experienced what I experienced, and there was no one else out there. And if anyone knew, they would judge me and not like me, and they would see this horrific person. Did you have a similar experience?
Definitely. I know. And I kind of see where they're coming from now that I'm on the other side. But when I would try to reach out to people and share how, especially my kid's father was doing me, because with my first husband, I never really spoke to anybody other than my dad. But with my kid's dad, I shared how he was treating me and how I wanted to leave the marriage and the marriage. And I don't know, I guess they thought I wanted to be treated that way because I wasn't leaving. They didn't understand why I was afraid to leave. And they just didn't understand. They thought, oh, well, if it's so bad, just leave. But as a single mom to 3 kids and both my parents are passed away, I had no support system. It was just me. I had no education, no work history, nothing to fall back on. And I was terrified because, I had 4 miscarriages before my oldest was born. And so my sons are my whole world. So the thought of potentially losing them because I couldn't provide for them scared me worse than the gaslighting and mental and emotional abuse I was going through with their dad. And so that's the thing that most people didn't understand. They were like, well, if it's so bad, why didn't you leave sooner? I wish I would have, for sure. And in hindsight, seeing that I have done it, I did leave. I'm doing it on my own without support from him. I wished I would have left sooner, but it's okay. Everything works out on the timing that God gives us, not our timing.
Yeah, amen to that. The gaslighting, tell us more about that. How did you even, I had a relationship where I was with the narcissist gaslighter, and I was so wrapped up into pleasing him and doing what he said. He'd asked me to jump, I'd ask how high. There was no questions whatsoever. And it took me a long time to realize it, but I was young. I was 15 when I met him, 18 when I finally got away from him. And, you know, people, I don't think people understand emotional abuse. It's so hidden versus the physical abuse. And I wasn't physically abused, but emotionally abused and the gaslighting. I didn't even know what gaslighting was until until a counselor had told me, well, that's what he was doing. And I think back about all the times I had struggled with, is that true? Did that really, like, I didn't even know my own thoughts. And I spent years asking people before to make a decision. I had to go through like 7 people to make sure that I was making the right decision because I was so scared. So what was your experience? Like, how did you come to this realization that this relationship isn't right? I know something's wrong, but I can't pinpoint it.
Right. Well, like you, when it was going on, I didn't know what a narcissist was. I didn't know what gaslighting was. All I knew is I was constantly being called names, bullied, belittled, criticized for everything. Like there was nothing I could do right. Even if I spent the 8 hours he was at work cleaning the house and taking care of the kids, he'd come home and find the one thing I didn't get to, and he'd be like, well, you didn't do this, instead of acknowledging all the things I did do. And when I was younger, I had a phenomenal memory. Like my dad got hurt at work when I was 12, and my mom would have me go to his doctor's appointments with him because it was a head injury and he couldn't remember, you know, social security numbers, birthdays, addresses, whatever. And so she'd send me because I could always remember all those details. So when I got with him and I started noticing a lot that I thought I remembered it correctly, and I probably did, but he was telling me that, no, that didn't happen. I didn't do this. I didn't say that. It's all in your head. And he had me questioning and doubting myself. And at first I wrote it off as, oh, well, maybe it's this mommy brain fog that everybody talks about, but it was all the time. And it was things that I knew I saw it happen. I knew he said it, but he was so sure of himself and saying, no, you're wrong, that you question your own sanity. And it was awful. It wasn't till after I got away from him and started going to a counselor that I got told what narcissistic personality disorder is and gaslighting. And then when I started looking back on, you know, all the years with him, I was like, wow, this has been going on the whole time. No wonder I'm such a mess now, because what it took for me to finally leave was I became so severely depressed and was having daily panic attacks. I would get up, at the time I was homeschooling my kids. I would get up, I'd get them their assignments started, feed them breakfast, and then I'd go lay down in my bed and I'd just stay there all day long. I had no desire to do anything that I loved. There was one time that I was like, hey, I love to read and I love to crochet. I should do one of these things instead of just laying here. And then I got the things out and I just looked at them and I was like, no, and pushed them aside and laid back down. And that's when it hit me that, you know, these are things that I love, things that bring me joy, but I'm not feeling joy. And so for me, that was the light bulb moment of something's not right here. Something needs to change. And I had spent years begging him to, you know, quit drinking, quit smoking marijuana, to put me and the kids first, and even go to marriage counseling, because I did try to leave him 4 years before I left for good. And I ended up going back out of fear. And so it just, at that point, we had to borrow money to even get the kids Christmas presents that year, because all of his money was going to drugs and alcohol, and he was lying to me about it. And even when I found facts and proving it to him, he still denied it. And that's one of the things that dumbfounds me about a narcissist is it don't matter how much facts, research, studies, anything you provide them with, if it don't go along with their version of reality, they won't accept it at all. And you're just wasting your breath trying to, because they will turn it around and blame you. And he did that. He told me that even though he did these things before we met, he told me that I was the reason he drank and did drugs. And it tore me down to a very bad place. Like, there was a moment where I honestly was considering suicide because I just wanted it all to stop. I didn't want to hurt anymore. I didn't want to feel so alone and isolated. And I felt a lot of guilt because by this point, my kids were getting older, and especially with my oldest son, for some reason, not so much with the younger two, but with my oldest one, he's does him the same way he does me. A lot of the name calling, belittling, just tearing you down. And it made me feel really guilty because I love my children dearly, and I felt like I should have provided them a better father. Like, I should have known who this person was before I had kids with them. And it was hard. So there's been a lot of emotions I've had to process and go through in the last 3 years, but I'm not completely where I want to be yet, but there's still hard days. But I'm so much better off than I even was a year ago, and I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah, and the healing process is a journey, and it does take time to grieve and to heal, especially when you have to rewire your mindset to understand that what happened, you can't control him, and him telling you that you were this way, that's no, and then but you believed it. How long has it been since you've been apart?
I separated from him and divorced him, and it was July of 2018. But because, we share kids, I can't just cut them out of my life completely. And recently, a few months ago, I made the massive mistake of trying to be the better person and be caring. He ended up homeless because him and his girlfriend, they were in a very toxic relationship, not surprising. But she was just as bad as him. And so he was going to have to move back to North Carolina, which would have been like 12 hours away from the kids, 13 hours. And I know the kids care about their father. So I was like, well, you could stay with us temporarily, get a job at one of the factories here. They're always hiring, and then get your own place. So I let him move in with us, and it didn't take not even 2 weeks before he started, name calling and belittling even me, trying to bring up the past with me. Was very hard on my oldest son. He enjoys video games, and of course, most teenage boys dream of being famous YouTube gamers. And so he has that dream, and I don't want to tear down his dream, because as long as he has a passion and a motivation for something, then I'll support that. And his dad instead would be like, that's stupid, it's retarded, you'll never be successful, you're wasting your time, and just nothing positive at all to say to him. And it was probably about a month ago. He had two of my sons crying that night, and I was talking to one of them, the youngest one, and I could hear him yelling at my oldest. So I come out of my bedroom, and he has his face like 6 inches away from my oldest son's face. And I was like, you know what? You need to leave. You are no longer welcome in my home. I'm sorry, but this ain't gonna happen. And it was a tough decision to make because I knew the kids would worry about their dad, but at the same time, it was mentally harming me and them. And he had already done that so much that I wasn't going to let it happen anymore. And in that moment, I realized just how strong I've become in the last 3 years, because 3 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to stand up to him like that. And it was a great feeling, honestly, because I've never been that strong in my life. I've been in multiple abusive marriages and bullied as a kid. Like, I never stood up to anybody. I always ran from confrontation. It made me very uncomfortable, especially because my parents used to fight a lot when I was little. So it was good to see that I had that strength. And the funny thing is I used to think, I wish I was strong enough to do these things. And in reflecting on it all, I've been strong enough the whole time. I just didn't know it. So being able to find that strength within ourselves is what I hope to help others do.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And it's so incredible when you can establish those healthy boundaries. And it's frustrating when you, like, you, especially being, a Christian and knowing that God wants us to love and serve others. And here you are helping, but that person is so unhealthy there. I mean, they're obviously hurting, and that's why they're hurting other people. But when it comes to your kids, this mama bears are like, oh no, you're not going to affect him that way. And it doesn't matter what the relationship is. It doesn't matter if it's the father, grandparent, or whatever. I had to cut my mom out of my life for 7 years because she was very unhealthy, accusing me of abusing my oldest and calling the CPS on me because she thought I was abusing them. And it's like, what, you got to stop. I mean, they show up at my work and I'd be like, okay, this is the 7th time, please stop. And to be able to be strong enough, and it does take strength, to take prayer. So what did you use to help you become so strong, to turn to establish your healthy boundaries?
All right. Well, that's the interesting thing. From a very young age, I've always had a really strong faith in God. I've been through a lot of difficult things and traumas in my life, and I always, trusted in God. I'd pray for his protection, his safety, his guidance. But after I left my kid's dad 3 years ago, I went through probably a good 2 years where I turned my back on God. Like, I was angry and bitter and resentful. And I don't know, I guess I, at the time, felt like God had abandoned me and betrayed me because all these things happened. And my mom passed away the year after I left him. So it was just like one thing after another. And it kind of reminds me of the book of Job, where, God keeps putting them through all these tests to see, how long he can do it. And that's when I realized, I was like, yep, I'm not Job by no means, but I tried. And so for a little while, I just tried to make it work on my own, and everything kept falling apart, which makes sense. But then that's when I found Ula, and honestly, Ula's what got me back to my faith and trusting in God. So I don't know, I guess I just had to go through that trial period. I've always been a very stubborn person that has to learn things the hard way rather than being told from somebody else's mistakes and learning instead that way. But I don't know, I believe everything happens for a reason. So the good thing is I got back to my faith now. So even on the hard days, I just keep holding on to that and trusting that he will provide for me and direct me in the ways that I should go. And it's just like the situation with my kid's father. I prayed about it before I let him come stay. And I was like, well, I'll give him a chance. He's being nice. He's been, somewhat sane lately. Of course, with narcissists, they're good at putting on a show and you're easily fooled. So I was, but I'm thankful I had the strength to stand up for him. So through it all, I know God's been there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, tell our audience about Ula, because we have some new listeners, and we'll have some people out here who have no idea what Ula is. So I'll let you take the floor on that one.
All right. Ula is a lifestyle framework. It comes from the French word or phrase for ooh la la. It's that place in your life where it is balanced and growing in the 7 key areas of fitness, finance, field, which is your career, faith, family, friends, and fun. And we also discuss the blockers that hold you back from your balanced life, like anger, guilt, self-sabotage, laziness, and then the accelerators that can help move you forward. So you got gratitude, love, passion, wisdom. It's completely transformed my life. Like I said, it got me back on track with my faith. I've paid off over $4,000 worth of debt. I re-enrolled in school to earn my bachelor's degree in business management. Just so many. And then since they launched the e-learning platform, the 1B7 for ULA Global, it's amazing because I would always forget my note cards at home that had my oranges and Skittles, my goals and my action steps, and just my daily errands. And having it right there on your phone is so great because you don't have nobody leaves their phone at home on purpose, anyways. And you usually freak out if you do. So it's great. It keeps you on track. And I've already accomplished so many goals just since June. It's amazing.
Yeah, it is incredible. And I love that tracker too. I like pressing that button and getting my badges.
Right.
So, explain to us a little bit about the oranges.
The oranges are the goals you set in the 7 key areas. It don't have to be one in each of the 7 areas. It can be one of them or multiple ones in an area that you're weaker in. I know they have what's it called? A guide, or I don't know what you'd call the Ula wheel, but this like questionnaire you go through to evaluate where you're at in your life in the 7 key areas. And I was surprised when I did it the first time because I thought I would be really great in family because I love my kids and they're my everything. And then when I answered those 10 questions, I was like, oh, I'm kind of dropping the ball here. And same with fitness. And so instead of having a round wheel that was rolling, mine was more like a triangle. It needed some work. But yeah, and I've been using the framework for over a year now, and there's still a few weak areas, but there's steady progress in all of them, and that's what matters. Give yourself the grace when you don't get it all right, and just stick with it, and you'll get there. So it's like a GPS or a map to where you want to be, because the ULA guys say that where you are is just where you are, not who you are. So that was a huge thing for me to learn, because where I wasn't where I wanted to be. It contributed to some of my depression. Nobody wants to be 37, a single mom, and struggling paycheck to paycheck. Nobody dreams that's where they'll be. So it was a light in the dark for me to let me know that there is more to life and I can have it. And it gives you the steps. So it's hard not to do it.
Yeah. Is that why you became a certified life coach?
Yes, I became a coach because it's funny. I never would have imagined being a coach or wanting to write a book or become a motivational speaker, and definitely not putting videos on YouTube because I'm very introverted and shy. But I don't know, knowing that what I've been through, and as Dave and them say, turn your mess into your message, knowing that I can use that for good. I don't know. It was like an instant knowing that I'd been searching for what the purpose in my life was, and all the things I considered. I never considered this, but once it came along, I'm like, that's it. Like, I just knew. And so I pursued it.
Yeah. Now your passion is your purpose.
Absolutely.
Or your purpose is your passion. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So if you could give one piece of advice to our audience that is or has recently gone through what you've gone through, co-parenting with a narcissist, or struggling and needing to know how would you set in a healthy boundary to get out of the relationship, or have to maintain this relationship co-parenting, what advice would you give them?
Well, honestly, I've been thinking about this a lot lately and reflecting on my own journey so I can help others. I think the most important thing is to establish a self-care routine, because mine was non-existent. Identify your personal values, and know your self-worth and be able to stand firm in them. Because once you value who you are and what you are willing to accept or not accept, then you can stand up to the person that's saying, you won't get anybody to treat you better, or nobody else is going to want you. Well, if you love who you are and you believe you're a beautiful person inside and out, it don't matter if a million people tell you that nobody else wants you, you'll be like, yeah, okay, whatever. You can brush it off. So I think it's very important to be able to learn to love yourself and stand firm in that. And once I did that, it changed everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Amen to that. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story, your journey. And I'm so excited to watch you flourish as you help others that were in the same situation, and kind of like reaching back and just saying, you're out of the fire. Let me help you get out of that fire. Because it's just really incredible. But the journey doesn't stop there. There's still that daily healing journey. And when you speak it and share it, especially on a platform like this, it's so healing. I mean, we still grieve it. We still, there's still those times where you have those thoughts like, why did I do that? Why was this, why? But, and we can't figure out the why. We can't change our circumstances, but we can certainly look back and, like you said, take that message from that mess and share it with others to know that they're not alone. So thank you so much. We will put the links to connect with you in the description. And if anyone what's the best way to get a hold of you? Through your website, Facebook, Instagram?
Usually Facebook, on most actively, but I've also been on Clubhouse daily now. So either Clubhouse around 8 a.m. Central Standard Time or 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, all week long, and Facebook any other time.
Do they, when they go into Clubhouse, they just search your name?
Yeah, it's, I believe, just Callie Brown on there, or it may be Callie Renee Brown, just like my Facebook.
Okay,
I think it's
but we'll
Callie
put the
Renee
link in there. Yeah, and what a great platform to be able to connect on Clubhouse. So you go in there, have a conversation, learn about the tools for ULA and how it helps transform. And if you, for those of you who are listening, if you're not doing self-care time, me time, you really want to rearrange your schedule and take care of yourself. 30 minutes a day is what I allow for me time. And, if it's just going for a walk, reading a book, meditating, whatever, just making sure that I get that time, because it really helps me to help others. So if you know anyone who would benefit from this show, this interview, please share it with them, and be sure to hit the subscribe button and pass along a review. Would appreciate it. Thank you so much, and have an amazing day. And remember, it's all a matter of the heart.